Hey everyone, welcome to Recover. Come on in, we got friends inside.
Alright guys, welcome to another episode of Recover Hub. We're coming up on the holidays soon here. Anyways guys, we have a special guest from New York, Joey, in the house, Mr. Donuts,
What's
aka
up, guys?
Mr. Bags of lots of pastry. What's up, dude?
Yeah, that's sobriety.
What's up
right,
with the
man.
pizza, dude?
Dude, New York pizza is where it's at.
I've never
Because
I
what?
miss
Because
the
it's
pizza
in
more
the
than
water?
My family's.
Yeah.
That's literally why
That's
I go
what they
home
stuff
visit.
in your stockings.
Yeah.
What part of New York are you from?
I was born in Brooklyn, and I grew up on Long Island, so moved there when I was like 3, but all my family's in Brooklyn and Long Island to this
Tell us
day.
about like your growing up, what it was like.
I'm one of 6 total. My parents divorced when I was young, and then my stepmom moved in, and pretty much I grew up with all chaos. My dad's New York City fireman. He was down in 9/11.
You were there for 9/11?
Yeah, I lived an hour away. I wasn't like there, but
Yeah.
my dad worked down there for like 6 months after.
Oh my gosh.
He's got COPD from 9/11.
That's like the respiratory
Yeah,
problem, right?
chronic.
There's so many people dying
obstructive
from that to
pulmonary.
this day. Like it's not just 3,000 people that died.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
all the inhalation,
absolutely.
like, and there's people dying all the time from
Absolutely.
from all the stuff they inhale.
Yeah, when I was like a real little kid, my stepmom, came on the scene, and like we would be really bad, and then my dad would get home, and we'd get our asses kicked because
But it was worth it.
yeah. So
I can imagine New York a lot of talking, right?
oh yeah,
I could just imagine being in your
hands
house.
going.
Yeah.
What's the matter with you? Like that's just the way it is. If I get excited, it comes out like you wouldn't believe.
So when did your drug use like start, or alcohol, whatever it was?
Yeah, was it
Like
like
15.
weed and alcohol?
Weed
Start off?
mostly, alcohol. Then I found pills like Xanax. Is really what I was addicted to for years.
How old are you right now?
I am 32.
32, okay. So you started at 15, and like what happened from there?
I mean, it was like normal smoking weed, doing pills, drinking. It didn't really affect life. I went to school every day. I had picked up a job at a grocery store when I was 16. I started selling weed. I thought I was Billy Badass, and
Well, back then, yeah, weed was considered to be like
yeah,
a
absolutely.
tough, like thug thing to do, is sell some weed. Now it's just like our parents probably smoke it. We don't even
Well,
know.
it was from more like to be cool. I wanted to, have the best weed, so people would want to get stuff from me. I'd be important.
Yeah.
All the girls wanted to hang out with me. I always had weed. It wasn't for me. It was the things that I had, of course.
Were you like uncomfortable in what got you to like use?
Oh, my
it?
whole
Like,
life I felt less than. I
Yeah.
never liked myself. I was in special ed as a kid. I was like 2 months premature. I wasn't very good at a lot of things. So anything to get me out of self, I did.
Yeah, I kind of understand that. I mean,
Yeah,
I failed 4th grade, and my parents like held me back or whatever, but it doesn't make me any less of a person today because of that. But I
Right.
mean, you look back at yourself, and you're so hard. I mean, it messes you up worse than you think. Like when that
Oh
happens.
yeah.
Even at 4th grade, I remember it. All my friends like going to the next level, but you were in special ed then, and that
I
kind
was
of
in
like
special ed, got made fun of. I was a small kid. I always fought back. I always, I
yeah.
didn't take any crap from anybody, but it still weighed on you, that stuff.
Yeah. So how did it progress like to the next level? I mean, it was just pills.
The pills and what I loved, I was always like a worrier. I always worried about everything, anxiety, which
Yeah.
I didn't realize it
Yeah.
at the time. On Xanax, the house could be on fire, and I don't care.
Yeah.
Remember one time on Xanax, my mom was taking me to detox. I'm in Staten Island, and I'm like, I'm not going to go to detox till you get me a beer, because the alcohol and the Xanax, really make you take off.
Combo.
Yeah.
Right, like,
It's
can't
like
have one
wine
without the
and
other.
cheese. Yeah.
So I end up finding $1 on the floor. I jump out of her moving car, run across the street, go into the deli, get a beer, drink that. And then I see an NYPD officer on the corner. My dad's retired. He's New York City fireman at the time. And I'm so messed up. I go up to this cop, And I'm like, my dad's on the job. Can you lend me $1? And this guy's like, are you serious? Did you just, like no shame. He's like, you didn't just ask me that. He's like, get lost before I lock you up. Like, it was just...
Well, you knew you were high?
I mean, you get to a point you think you're functioning.
Yeah, you
like
do.
You are anything
You look
but.
at yourself in the mirror,
You're
like,
just a mess.
I got this.
You're just a mess. And, it's just one of the many stories on Xanax where, like, a lot of times I wouldn't remember things that, I've crashed cars and, like, had no recollection. People are mad at me. I have no idea why.
But yeah.
It was just awful.
Were your brothers and sisters against you at all during this, or they were pretty much...
I mean, at times, like, we've gotten to physical altercations, and I'd wake up with, like, a black eye. Because, like, I would...
I mean, that's kids, yeah.
Be running my mouth, and, like, I couldn't defend myself. I couldn't even hold my hands up.
Just the top
Never...
of you.
Yeah, it was just awful, and... I wouldn't feel at the time, but the next day I'd be hurt.
So did it progress further than pills?
Oh, yeah. I got into the painkillers, and I did that for years. The Vikes, the Perks, the Roxys.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed snorting things. It's just, you have a nose like this. It's just, what are you going to do?
Yeah, with Xanax, you could take a polygraph on a lot of things that... you swear you didn't do, and then you're like, I did not do that, and it turns out that you did. You crashed the car, you got out, and you're like, well, it was a rough night last night, and it's on fire out in the driveway.
My stepmother, when I was like 10, she was in a DWI accident. I was in the car. A woman died. She went to prison for 4 years back in 1998, right? And for years I held that against her because I didn't understand until I ended up becoming an addict and taking Xanax. And I've driven. I mean, I could have killed someone just as easily. By the grace of God, I never did. But I drove more times than I'd like to say, under that condition. And until I became an addict, that's the only time I was able to forgive her and really let that go, because I could have did the same thing. But as a kid, you don't understand,
Did it progress further, like into heroin, meth,
or
anything like that?
Cocaine, heroin.
How to go from downers primarily to uppers? Just whatever.
Just whatever I could get. I'm a garbage pail. Like, I'm not going to, turn anything down, especially in the middle of it. I would go to work this way. It didn't matter. As long as I had my stuff, like, I didn't care about anything else, And in New York for a while, the pills were big until someone shot up a pharmacy and someone died, and then that was like the pharmacy that I went to when I was a kid, and they ended up making the database for any narcotics, the national database. So then the pills stopped, and then everyone on Long Island was doing heroin.
What brought you to like your first rock bottom, to where you like went into help, or like your first time you went into treatment? Like what happened?
I couldn't function on it or off it. I was 21. The first time I went to rehab was for Xanax. And, I got introduced to NA and AA then. And I was like, okay.
Was that just going to meetings?
Just going to meetings, no
nothing.
step work.
Okay.
And, it was a thing where, like, I was hitting, like, 2 rehabs a year. Probably for, like 7-8 years. That was my life. Like, I used to joke, I never packed a bag for a vacation, but I always knew how to pack a bag for rehab, and which rehabs, I could tell you which rehabs I could bring what to, and what was allowed and what wasn't allowed, and, knowing the ins and outs of the systems, the sober houses on Long Island, being kicked out of my house, have nowhere to go, and then I'm using in sober living, and I have to go out on the street. Not like I've ever been, like, homeless. Mm-hmm. I've stayed, people's couches or somewhere to go. I've never, like, slept on the streets, but, like, I've had, like, legitimately nowhere to go to.
Was there a point, like, your parents, like, kicked you out of the house or something like that?
Yeah, but from my Italian family, they never were not in my corner. My father, I mean, God bless that man, he, if I wanted to get help, he'd always, give me a ride somewhere, or made sure I had food to eat, even if I wasn't doing, I wouldn't get money for drugs or anything like that, but anything I needed, he definitely made my life easier. Somewhat enabled, but, it wasn't, not the use, but still, like, he could have let me stay out there and really hit bottom. I think that kind of made it so I could stay out there longer, unbeknownst to him, but, You know,
How long were you out there? When did you move here?
3 years ago,
3 years?
2016. I came out here for treatment. You know, I was doing heroin like.
Like, what brought you out here though? Like, you wasn't working over there. And,
Yeah, I mean,
what,
I'd get sober and you know, stay clean for a while, and then I'd start using again, and you know, AA really worked for me even out there, but once like I'd put work first, I'd put the girl first, I'd always put something first, and I'd end up losing everything. That's pretty much.
So like how did you figure out like what brought you actually to Prescott?
My best friend came out here. He graduated. He was a Clean Adventures alumni. He got out here somehow. I got clean, got him, which made him want to go into recovery. And then I had like 7 months at the time, and then I relapsed. But he came out here.
Is he still out here?
Yeah, he lives in Phoenix. He's like 4 years
good.
sober. Yeah, he's doing really good.
Awesome.
I was actually
That's
just
cool,
talking to him like literally on the way over here.
Well, that's
Like you know, I know him since kindergarten. Like he's like
it's
a
awesome
member
to
of my
see that
family.
people are actually like making it, because we see so many people
Oh, yeah.
relapse like crazy.
It's
It almost makes us feel like we're not gonna make it. You know, when
Yeah.
we see it like all the time. So
Yeah, when was your rock bottom though? Do you have like
Oh yeah. So I mean, I was out
probably
here.
several of them, right?
Yeah, depends on which one you want to talk about. But I had a situation. I was out here. I went to treatment out here. Then I went back home. Within 4 days, I was high. A month and a half later, I moved back out here on that same buddy's couch. I didn't go to treatment or anything that time. I just came out here and said, all right, this is what we're doing. And stayed clean about 4 months. And then I started drinking and using and heroin and coke and whatever I get my hands on, which is not really easy to do in Prescott, by the way. At the time, it wasn't really easy to get drugs here. So I ended up drinking a lot because I couldn't get drugs. You know, Walmart sells liquor, like boom, let's get it, you know.
Yeah.
So I would have like Sprite always in the fridge and red Gatorade, and I would just put vodka in that. And like 5 a.m, if I had work at 6, I'm drinking.
I'd call those Faderades back in the day. Like you take the Gatorade and then you dump out half, and then you fill it up with vodka. You can be shitty vodka if you want, and then you drink
always.
it, and it's you're dehydrating from the vodka and rehydrating from
You put a
the
lot of
Gatorade,
thought into this.
so you're completely neutral, smooth sailing.
I love it. If only. So alcohol is a depressant, as you know, and I'm drinking. I wanted to stop so bad, but I couldn't.
Yeah, I was in the same boat
I
for 20
really
years.
I
with
wanted
drinking.
to stop, and I couldn't. I'm drinking every day. By the way, to this day, I still can't have Sprite or red Gatorade.
You can't have Sprite
because it tastes like vodka to me.
It's like
my-
a trigger or whatever.
No,
Dang.
it tastes like vodka.
Yeah.
I'm drinking, and you know, I wanted to stop, but I couldn't. So I couldn't imagine going on this way, but I couldn't stop. So I'm gonna take my life, and I go and buy 3 bottles of Tylenol PM. I leave Walmart, go down Walker Road by Costco, and like halfway to Lynx Lake, and park my car in the woods. And I wash down 2 of those bottles, probably like 200 capsules of Tylenol PM, with vodka, and put 200 Tylenol PMs. I had 3 bottles, but for whatever reason,
What was going through your head before you took that? Were you just like, I'm done?
You were just like,
this is
fuck it, that's it. Or-
Because there's like,
Yeah,
there's like
I-
a split second where you're like, no, I shouldn't do this.
you know, and like I started taking them, I'm like, oh, what if this is not a good idea? But I was like, I don't care. I can't live like this anymore. I'm gonna be nothing. I don't want to keep going like this. It's just too painful. And I texted my girlfriend at the time and said, I love you. I'll always love you, or something like that. And I wrote her phone number on a business card. I don't know why. And I put the seat back, and next thing I know...
You were in your car then, or whatever?
I was in my car. Next thing I know, I'm in the hospital. And I was out for a good day. I'm on life support. People from this town that I'd known less than a year kept coming up to the hospital. It was crazy, like 50 people.
Who found
from
you? Who
A
found you?
cop driving by. No.
And you, man, that's a miracle right there.
So
You
by
found
the
you.
grace of God, like somebody like found you,
Yes.
brought you to the hospital at this
Yes.
time, and what did they say at the hospital? Like when you
So,
came to?
you know, Pastor Bob, he's the one that took the picture that you see here. He asked the doctor what's going on. Like the nurse was giving him an attitude, supposedly. And they said, so we've never seen anyone survive that has 50,000 milligrams or more in their system. He has 80. His organs are going to start shutting down, and he's going to be dead within 24 hours. And it's going to be a painful and really gruesome death.
So, how exactly was the process worked out to where they were able to flush your system to get that out before you did die, or you had major like liver or something failure?
They have an antidote that they, I guess, put into my system to attach to the Tylenol to keep it out of my liver, and they, I guess, charcoaled me, but I don't have any recollection of that.
How long was this for? Like in the hospital?
I did like 3 days in the hospital. So I wake up the next day. It's like 5 a.m, and I'm supposedly gonna die. I wake up. My first thought is, oh my God, I'm still alive. I was mad because
Yeah.
just to be honest.
Yeah.
But people kept coming up, and I saw like, wow, people. It's not like these are people that I grew up with. These are people I knew less than a year, except my friend Nick, of course, was up there. But people I'd known less than a year. They kept coming up to the hospital and really like showed me love and care and concern like I'd never experienced before. I'd say in the 3 days, like 50 different people came up, and there's only allowed 2 people in the room at a time, so they had to take turns, and people just showed up, and I was floored by that. Within that hospital stay, and I had to do a psych ward stint after that, of course. That's when I came to Jesus.
3 days.
No, 3 days in the hospital, a week in the psych ward.
Oh, they usually put you in there for 3 days, 72 hours until you can get cleared. But in that case, I'd say a week is probably minimum.
I didn't have a leg to stand on. I'm lucky it was just
So
7
it shows that people are actually care about you.
Oh, of course.
More than you thought. I mean, you thought what you thought about yourself, and then these people are all coming.
I thought I was doing them a favor.
Yeah.
And the mindset that I was in.
Yeah, that's how I had the same sort of situation too. But I was on a lot of psych meds. I was on like 6 different psych meds before I moved here. Oof. And one of them had the warning that, suicide attempt warning on it. And I've never tried to kill myself either, but when I ran out of drugs, or I thought I ran out of drugs coming off Xanax and heroin, I had this undying, like relentless urge to kill myself for relief. And the only thing that was going through my head is that I'm such a burden on every person in my life that this would free them of it. Yeah. And I'm in so much pain and agony right now that it's good for me to do this. And what happened was, what got me here, the only thing I could think of was that I'd try to hang myself. So I tried to hang myself in one of my closets in my apartment, and no one was there. And I did the same thing where I said goodbye, because I didn't want my family or anyone to think that the reason why I killed myself was something they did. I wanted to reassure them that, this is my deal. Like, this doesn't have anything to do with you. This is, I feel so bad and guilty on the inside about what I've done, and the manipulation and all that crap that, I'm just going to put an end to it. And within, I'd say like less than 6-7 minutes of me setting it up and actually going, I'm hearing a knock on the door, and it was like 2 cops. And the door was open because I was going in and outside. Yeah. And they came in and pulled me down, took me to the psych ward too. And then I had the option to come here, but that's what happened to me. And when I got here, I felt the same way that you did about, this community. You think that no one really cares, but everyone's had such a healing, or a family member that's gone through it, to where, there's this like high level of spirituality and love that goes around, that even though they haven't known you for that long, they still feel what you've gone through, and they have sympathy and empathy for you.
And they walked alongside with me through that.
Especially in Prescott, all the people.
It feels like
at first I thought they were just felt sorry for me. They're trying to reach out just to help other people out, but not like they actually care about you more than we think.
Guys like Earl and Bob and Paul, they walked the whole journey with me. Yeah. No matter what I did, the lies, these people still had my back. My family.
I mean, after seeing that picture, just kind of it makes me, look at you as if you're almost a ghost, like, because you almost didn't make it, but to see you here now is awesome.
I mean, it's a miracle.
And where you're at.
All I did my whole life is just make bad decision after bad decision, and my life is very good today despite myself. God has really restored my life, and any time that I veer off, He's pulled me back.
Yeah.
It's
It's so
amazing.
was that your last stint?
No, it wasn't. 3 months, I stayed clean 2 months, just pure all right, I don't want to let everyone down. And then I discovered meth in that time, which they don't really have that back in New York, so that was new. And one night I'm in a hotel room, and I'm hearing things that aren't really there. And
tell me about the first time you were so what
I
happened
thought
when
the hotel manager, they were gonna come, and a SWAT team was coming. And, and I never smoked it. I only snorted it because I was I can't even handle this. I can't imagine people that shoot it or smoke it. I'm just that's got to be nuts. I couldn't, and I just be in my head the whole time, all paranoid. And that's when I thought, the hotel manager knew, and they were in the room next to me. It was awful.
Yeah.
And at
it's
that
always
moment,
the same story over and over.
In that moment, I was what am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
And that's when I said, okay, I'm done. I called Bob, and I had to have Bob pick me up. This poor man, this guy, what I put him through. I wasn't going to get in my car because I thought the cops were waiting for me.
Yeah.
And Bob picked me up, and took me for a burger or something. And he stayed with me the whole time until I felt good enough that I wasn't so paranoid, and it kind of wore off. But I just said, what am I doing with myself? And I stopped, and I really jumped into AA. Got my life together really, really well at that point. I had 9 months. I had a good job, and I was working at the hospital, and I thought I had arrived. I finally had a career job.
Yeah.
But that's all I did. It was just after a while I stopped going to meetings and Bible study and
started drifting a little bit.
Yeah, you were riding that pink cloud. That's what we call it. It's it's when everything starts to come together for you to where you go, I got this, and then you just try a little bit of something.
That's kind of what happened. And I had an urge one day to do cocaine. I was 9 months clean. I was going to get baptized the next day at Goldwater Lake, and I couldn't get it out of my head. So I found cocaine in Prescott, which was not easy to do.
You really looked for it, huh?
It was $90 for a gram. It was
You'd
100.
go down to a mine shaft.
I got two for 90.
Let me ask you a question. How long did you go out there and look for it? And in that time frame, you could have asked somebody, what was this like? What was going on through your head? You could have called somebody, but you know how your mind gets.
Once it's made up, I'm not calling nobody because they may.
But
talk
how
me
long
out
did
of
you
it.
go search for it? Let's just ask that.
Hour and a half.
Hour and a half of searching.
Yeah.
And your heart's probably just racing. I mean, once you're at that point, it's over and done with. I kind of understand that.
I had already relapsed before I did it. Once I'm in that mode and I'm trying, it's
You've had those feelings recently though. Have you done something different? This time. What do you do now?
I pray. I call someone. I have this 4-step thing out of James 4:7, which is you admit that you let the thought in, you repent, you turn away from the sin, you submit yourself to God and the power of the Holy Spirit, resist the devil, and he will flee from you.
Okay.
And I do that in my head whenever there's something that I'm trying to turn away from.
And does it work?
Yes. I had never gotten the urge and not used before a couple months ago. So it's I'd get the urge and there was nothing that could stop me.
So tell me what happened the next day when you were going to get baptized.
So I was at this point, I'm all right, I have to show up.
This is a little bit after you got the coke. You just kept going.
This is the next day.
Oh,
the next day.
This is the very next day.
Baptized.
I'm up all night. I'm doing coke all day, and I'm gonna go get baptized. But I'm and I think it was the devil trying to not get me to do that. But I'm it's gonna raise way too many questions if I don't show up for my own baptism.
Yeah.
So I just had to do it, and I got baptized high. And
did anybody really know?
No. I kept that
You
going.
don't think they knew?
No, I know they didn't know because.
So how long did you hide this like afterwards?
Let's see. I pulled away from everything, and I'm working and I'm getting high, and I was doing meth at this point. Let's see. That was June. I got arrested in April. Maybe people knew towards the end of that because I wasn't coming around, but no one saw me. No one could say they saw me high.
Did you ever go to jail or anything like that? Or?
So that's where I'm getting to. Yeah. So it's April, this last past April, and I'm driving. I'm on 69, and I had just picked up some stuff, and I'm driving home, and there's a cop in Prescott Valley, and I see him, so I go on to the Route 69, and I actually got pulled over for going too slow.
Like, you dingus, what are you thinking?
Because I'm just overthinking.
You think you're going light speed? You're like,
I'm going 30 and a 60 on 69 up here, and the cop's like, you know what? I pulled you over, and he's like, you're going too slow, and I'm like, oh, because you were behind me, I'm nervous, and I really wasn't high at this point, but I had stuff on me.
Yeah.
And they're like, so we're gonna search the car. Is it all right? And I'm like, yeah, it doesn't matter what I say. They're gonna search it anyway. They're like, can we bring canines out? And I'm like, sure. I knew I'm dead in the water here, and they end up finding it. And I didn't admit anything, but once they found it, and I was like, all right, you got me. And I went to jail.
how long were you there?
3 days. I got charged with 2 felonies.
2 felonies, 3 days.
2 felonies. Lost my job at the hospital. I thought my life was over. That was it. So I have to call my dad, I think he thinks that I'm a year and a half sober. Yeah. By the way, I celebrated a year at elements I didn't have because that would have raised some questions.
When was this?
That was last September, not the September that just passed, the one before that. So it was to the point, I really wasn't going to Bible study, but it was like, okay, if I don't celebrate a year,
you were just pretending everything.
It was miserable, but it would have raised way too many questions. So I celebrated a year I didn't have because it was just easier than dealing with people and answering questions and dealing with that shame. Because I got my life back together. I did really well for those 9 months. I was working at the hospital. I really, that was the most time I ever had. I really did very well.
So you were using while you were working at the hospital?
Yes.
How'd that go down, dude?
So I'm probably never gonna get a job in the medical field again after this. But.
No, we have a guy that's at one of the programs right now. He did some pretty bad stuff. He took what was it, morphine, and he would not give the patients morphine, and he was taking the morphine.
Oh yeah.
So
that's pretty bad.
Putting saline in it.
So people do really horrible things that.
Yeah. So I was just in the bathroom sometimes, and it wasn't. I wouldn't get very high at work. It was just sometimes to not fall asleep.
Yeah, just to carry you over.
To keep you going.
And it'd be the middle of February. I'm sweating in an office. I'm just sweat coming down my face, and.
But you're the best worker they've ever had.
And
I'm running.
I'm doing well at work, but my anxiety's through the roof. One time I Ubered home, left my car there. I had to go. I just Ubered home, left my car there. I'm in my mind, I'm thinking, what were they thinking? I was out of my mind. I'm thinking everyone knows. Every day I'm getting caught. I never did, but in my mind, every day I'm getting caught. Yeah. So when I got arrested, it was such a relief because finally it was over. I didn't have to live that lie. It was well, you're going to have to deal with it now.
I'm getting anxiety thinking about it right now.
I got rescued when I got arrested. Once I was all right, I'm going to jail. It was a relief. I had to call my dad, and he's like...
How long ago was this anyway?
April.
This last April?
Mm-hmm.
That's when I got here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because we have about the same time.
Yeah, we started the journey together.
Yeah.
So I get out of jail, and... obviously, I lose my job. You know why I lost my job? Because I no-call, no-showed. Not because of the drugs. It was because I no-call, no-showed 2 days in a row. I couldn't call in sick from jail. So.
Oh, yeah. That's why you're telling, the COs in there, you're like, I'm going to lose my job if you don't let me out, sir. And they're like, oh, that's what they want.
I'm
they don't.
Yeah, I need to get on the phone. And they're like, yeah, later. Then 2 days goes by. I already saw the judge. I just had to, get in touch with someone to pick me up. They didn't give a shit.
Did you have to bail out, or was it just your first deal that they
no,
cut
I
you
didn't
loose?
have to. I got released under my roommate's his care, and I just the condition was I had to show up for court. And like out here, they did it really fast. They early disposition court, so they offered me. I went to court like a week later, and I accepted a deal right away. I knew time was up, and I was like, all right, 3 years probation. The felonies will get dropped. One will come off my record totally. The other one will go down to a misdemeanor once I finish probation.
So let's talk about like how you flipped your life around in this shorter period of time.
Oh
like
yeah,
where you're at right now. How long? What was the longest stint you've been sober? And is this pretty much?
This is the second. I'm at number 2 right now. So those 9 months before I got baptized, I was sober. This is the second most time I've ever had.
Okay.
I went in. I got into Reflections Recovery Center, and I was on probation.
What's the difference between that last 9 months and like this time around?
Truthfully, God, like I can't say that I really did anything different or that I wanted it more. I just think this time I was looking at it differently. I just made better decisions. So when I was in Reflections, I had a lot of time to think. I picked a sponsor that not only has a working knowledge of the 12 steps, but Jesus is his higher power.
Yeah.
So that was like, for whatever reason, I had AA God and I had like church God. And there was 2 different things to me, even though I was a believer. And something just clicked. I never looked at it like that before. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to pick a believer. So I picked Earl. So we're Sponsee brothers, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know. And he's been through it. He's been on the podcast himself. Shared a lot of great stuff that I didn't know about him until he got on here.
And I know Earl. I knew him when he was using. Like I've been out here for a long time. Just because I've just gotten to treatment this last time 8 months ago, and I have 8 months sober. I've been out here over 3 years.
And I hear Bob helped him out too to get him.
Oh yeah, Bob
I'm just like, man,
he's probably gotten more people clean than Suboxone. That guy. he really So I did this Freedom in Christ discipleship with Paul. And like it just totally like really made me want to give my life to the Lord, and totally I just looked at everything differently. It wasn't like I felt like I was a baby Christian, and then I feel like doing this course I really like became a mature Christian. I just saw everything different. Like the words, that I said when I got baptized, that I'm giving my life to Jesus and that he's my Lord and Savior. I didn't really get it until like a month or 2 into this recovery. That's when like it all kind of came together for me. Yeah,
I kind of want to talk about like how can you forgive yourself for some of this stuff that you've done. Like, I mean, Jesus forgives us, right? So, I mean, that's kind of where it stems from a little bit. It doesn't matter.
Well, I look at it like this. If the creator of the world can forgive me, who am I? Am I better than him to not forgive myself or anyone else?
Yeah.
I used to really hold resentment, especially towards exes and women and my mom and all this stuff. And it's like, what? People are all just doing the best they can with what they got.
Yeah.
I don't think most people don't set out to hurt other people. There are the exceptions, of course, but for the most part, people don't try and hurt other people. They're not thinking that far ahead. They're coping with whatever they're coping with, and they're just trying to deal every day the best that they can.
Hurt people.
So looking at it through that lens,
it's
like, okay, you know what? I was doing the best I can. This counselor I had in Reflections, he's like, everyone's just doing the best that they can. Your parents, your ex, whoever, they're all doing the best they can with, what they got, what they've been given. And it's like, oh, all right, we all have baggage, we all have stuff. So now I look at it like that, and it's like, okay, who am I to not really forgive somebody?
When did you feel it click? Like, when did you feel like it was necessary to finally give up control to your, God?
Really, this whole recovery, I just hit the ground running. I said, I'm not gonna waste my life anymore. I used to stress about everything, every little thing, like, I'd lose sleep over. Mm-hmm. And now it's like, you know what? Despite my bad decisions, everything's worked out like great, far better than it should have. So now I just give it to God, and it's like I sleep better at night. I'm not worried about anything. I'm like, all right, if it's meant to happen, it's gonna happen. So I did the Freedom in Christ, and it really changed my life. I started discipling someone else, taking them through it. And Earl is like, they have this residency at Heights Church for ministry. So, it's like an internship through the church, and, you do ministry, and it's for people that have an interest in, full-time ministry, or, just to, disciple people, or whatever kind of ministry you want to go into. I'm 60 days clean at this point. I don't have a job, a place to live. I have nothing.
Yeah.
I can't even pay for treatment. They ended up like scholarshiping me because my insurance ran out, and like they really, I got such a leg up that I didn't deserve. And Earl's like, so I think you should fill out this application for this residency. And I'm like, all right, whatever. Like, I have nothing. Like,
yeah,
definitely now is not the time. Like, maybe next year, but now, no way. So then he calls me up and he's like, so I got you a 2-day extension because you're supposed to be in by a Sunday. He's like, I got you till Tuesday to fill out this 13-page application. And I'm like, all right, I guess I'm filling it out. So I stepped out into faith, which is not something I do. Yeah. I've lived in fear. I've lived in fear my whole life. That's kind of why I did drugs. And I operated out of fear. Every decision I made was out of fear. And I said, you know what? I'm going to give this to God. I'll fill out this application. If he wants me here, I'll get it. If not, then, at least it shows me what I need to work on as a Christian.
Yeah.
Because there's some hard questions on there. And I was like, oh, yeah, it probably isn't the right time for me, But in doing that, I ended up going on this interview. And first of all, I'm this drug addict, right? And I was the only person that dressed up for the interview, they told me. So of all, I think the people that applied, I think 7 got in. Now we're down to 6. I was the only one that actually dressed up nice for the interview. So I'm, this drug addict, and I ended up doing really well in the interview, and I got accepted into the residency, and stuff I've learned has just been fantastic.
And what do you do through this? What's your role in the residency?
We're reading a bunch of different books, and we went through the Bible already, and Old Testament to New Testament, and now just different courses that we're taking, plus we're doing 10 hours of ministry on the side besides that. So, for instance, my focal points of ministry are small group leader and discipleship. Okay. So I meet with someone who's discipling me, and I learn about discipling so that I could disciple someone else. Kind of like sponsorship, but with Jesus.
Yeah, cool.
And you see, I'm a leader on Wednesday nights at the Bible study, which, but me doing residency, Bob was like, I think Joe needs to be in a leadership type role. I know that I'm doing more than just recovery ministry because I didn't have to go to residency to, do that. But I know God's calling me for something more, and it's all to glorify His name. So
it's funny how you thought the hospital gig was your career. And we do that a lot with things in our life, especially in the past with that addict mentality where this was where I was at. I was set here, I had the same deal with me with the film industry. I thought if I left Los Angeles, I'd be a failure. And I didn't realize how much anxiety and depression that place was causing me, how much of a derogatory message that has, for everyone that's living there. And when I just gave that up and I came here, I'm like, I'm just going to see what God has for me. I remember that was the change for me. All of a sudden, everything cleared up. And people have to do that. Yeah, you have to give up that stuff that you thought made you. And instead of having, killing yourself to be who you want to be, maybe let it go and let God decide who you're going to be.
Oh, and by the way, what's funny? I forgot to mention, I ended up working at the hospital. That's the same hospital that I was on life support in. And my first day, on the job, we had to go through orientation, and I got to walk past the room I was in life support in as an employee. Sober. Yeah. I was 5 months sober.
Did that feel weird?
That's kind of...
I almost cried. It was, no drug ever got me so high than, I was high on life in that moment, because it was all grace to God.
Yeah, you were living in God's grace.
Because, I should have been dead, and now, they were looking at me like the biggest piece of crap. The staff at the hospital.
Yeah.
It's never too late. Until there's no breath in someone's lungs, it's never too late. I see people that they come to this town and like they stay clean for a couple years without doing anything. They go back home and relapse. Me, like I take one night off from a commitment I use. Like,
Yeah.
It's not even funny. I can't like take 15 minutes off, you know,
Yeah.
and I've learned that about myself. You know, I have to be involved. The second I start putting anything in form of recovery, I lose it. I don't care about consequences. I have to be involved. I have to, you know, be helping people because if not, I'm gonna
So
lose.
to this day, you're working full time. You're doing the residency.
Yes.
Are you sponsoring people or anything?
I have 3 sponsees.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what is some of the things that you like struggle with like today? I mean, we all struggle still.
Loneliness.
Like, loneliness. Yeah.
You know, in the past, I was addicted to the toxic relationships too, where I didn't think much of myself, so I just accepted anyone that would be there. And, you know, I mommy issues and abandonment issues, so that, you know, perfect recipe for whatever. Now I'm at a point I know my worth.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
even though, because I'm lonely, and it's because I don't have time and I don't want to deal with, you know, the second there's a red flag nowadays, I'm too busy to deal with stuff. I don't want to deal with it.
We have to get comfortable with ourselves
Right.
before you can even
So
start
I have
dating.
too much going on to
Like-
even really think about dating right now. You know, I'm working full time, doing residency full time, plus recovery stuff. And it's like I don't really have time for anything else.
Do you ever get trapped in boredom, or you just try to stay out of that?
That's the killer.
Yeah.
These days, no. In the past, yes. But, you know, I have homework to do. I have
Are you in school too, or?
residencies. I get homework
yeah.
at residency.
Okay.
So I'm reading like 3 separate books right now, like besides like Tuesday all day in residency, plus like a workbook, and then if you have to write any papers or whatever else they have us do.
It's pretty crazy how like when you're at your rock bottom, how you can say like, you know, I want to get a job, I want to get in a good relationship, I want my
Yeah.
family to trust me, and then you get all that stuff back, and you think that you'll be cured from
Oh,
your
yeah. No
your
way.
disease, and then you keep pushing forward, and you realize that like now the responsibilities that you've accumulated also might throw you back into it, and you just
Sure.
it's like a shadow fall. It's like your shadow following you around all the time. Like it's gonna be there.
Yeah.
You can't like you gotta respect it. But
You have to
it's
constantly look at yourself.
And I was so worried about all this working out, you know. At the same week I got residency, I got offered full time at my job. And I'm like, okay, I set the boundary. I need Wednesday nights off. I need Tuesdays off for residency. Like, and I wasn't bending. I was like, God wants me here. That has to go first.
Yeah.
And I've learned like whenever I put work first or anything else first, I lose it anyway. So I'm like, okay, God wants me here for a reason. I had no business getting into this residency, and the fact that I did means that God wants me doing his work. So I'm like, I set the boundary of my job. I need these days off. And like I was so worried about what they were going to say and all this stuff. It all worked out. Like that's why I don't worry anymore, because it never does me any good. And like it's going to work out the way it's supposed to, regardless of what I do, because I'm not that powerful. I can't control other people. I can't control situations. I just could roll with it and try and have the best attitude I can towards it. That's really all I could do.
I think we came to the conclusion that, you know how you said you made all those bad mistakes throughout your life, and we look at those as losses and
Oh, yeah.
failures, you know, but the way we look at it now and the way it's perceived now is that those losses, in a way, were still a win because they pointed us in the
100%.
right direction, you know, and it's
would-
okay.
yeah.
It's okay to, like, fail at things because it's molding you into someone stronger and capable of handling the stuff that you need to, that God has laid out for you the
Absolutely.
rest of your life. I mean, you just got to trust him and know that the future isn't up to you, and that
I agree.
you just keep going in that same direction, and God will provide. And you know, there's nothing really to be anxious about. I mean, do what you got to do. Obviously, you don't just lay down on
Right,
the
you
couch
plan,
and
you know,
yeah,
plan for things.
plan for
but
things, but you don't gotta like kill yourself.
no, I don't, you know.
Is
so-
there anything like outside that you would say to somebody like to help them stay recovered, or I mean, what's your advice?
It's tough because like there were so many times I really wanted it and
Yeah.
I didn't want to use, and I did. Really just give yourself a chance to let things happen.
Yeah.
Just get out of your own way. Trust other people. You know, I always said, you know, I don't have to listen to that. That may work for you, but it doesn't work for me. don't leave before the miracle happens. I know that sounds like such a cliche, but like I am
sounds like a cliche.
Literally a walking miracle. Like I shouldn't be here. And like that wasn't even enough for me to get it. Like my life was saved, and it was like I still was not in a position to accept recovery. I think
it all goes back to that like instant gratification that we're just trying to go back to, and we just feel like a failure, and we just want that relief of whatever it is that we're missing, loneliness, whatever it is, and we just like immediately just flip and just go right to that drug, and it gives us that instant relief, that instant gratification, right?
Yep.
And
how can we say to people out there, like, when they are in that pain and they don't think they're going to get through it, like, at that certain point, that we've been in that situation where it's like, this is too much to handle. I got to use over it now.
I recommend for, like, anyone, if you get to a rehab and if you learn nothing, like, you need to get pulled out of your environment.
Yeah, you have to. You can't stay there.
For me, like, I couldn't stop unless, like, something stopped me. Even if I want to. Like, that's why I tried to kill myself, because I couldn't stop. I wanted to stop. But, like, I just wasn't capable of doing it. And then, like, the only thing that fills this emptiness, this void that I've had my entire life is God. That's the only thing that ever filled that void.
But, like, going back to your baptism, I remember I got baptized, and then I went out and relapsed, like, probably a few days later. People think that when you get baptized, it's just going to cure you. Like, you're never going to want to use, or you're now converted over to God.
That's proven wrong, right?
Yeah. But it's you have to do what God is asking, and that is honestly giving up the control and giving up, your old ways, and you have to unplug yourself and go plug into a healthy environment.
Absolutely.
That's the key to starting the whole fulfillment through God, is just getting out of your old self and getting thrown into something that you didn't think you wanted to do, and then overcoming that.
It's true, and like it's just get out of your own way.
Yeah.
When being a Christian, I feel like I'm a bigger target. First of all, people look at you like, okay, you're a Christian. You don't really sound like one. You don't really act like one. And two, like for the addiction, for the devil.
Does that sometimes put extra like anxiety on you, like that you're trying to
Not
hold?
anymore.
You're trying to hold an image. Did it at first though?
It doesn't anymore, because someone's always going to have something to say.
Yeah.
I'm always going to be that ex-addict. Even my own family, I love them to death, but like they're never going to fully trust me. And for good reason.
It's going to take time.
And for good reason, because anytime they trusted me, I let them down every time.
Ironically, you'll end up being like probably the most well-behaved, most admirable person out of your siblings. And in the end, like, they look at you like that, but then, I don't know.
And I can't blame them for feeling that way. I earned that,
Yeah. That's something that I feel like I got to realize is like I have to earn all of my respect back.
Yeah, I went back in September or August, and, like, I'm not allowed to leave by myself. I'm 32 years old.
Yeah.
Where do you think you're going, young man? Like, that's how it feels.
Yeah.
But I accepted their feelings, and that I used to get really mad. Like, how could you treat me like this? I've been sober 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Don't you know how hard that is?
Yeah, look at me, Mom. I'm sober.
And now it's like, you know what? If you don't want me to leave by myself or take a car, or you want to come with me wherever I need to go, and that makes you feel better for what I put you through, sure.
That's what I say to my mom. I go, like, listen, Mom, I know, I get it. Like, I understand that, like, what I did was awful, and what I
traumatized them.
Yeah, me too.
Overdosing, that they had to bring me to the hospital.
Yeah.
And, like really, like I understand, like the only time my dad could sleep, and he used to sleep on the couch when I was there, not this time, but like when I used to live there, he'd sleep on the couch because he'd be afraid I was going to sneak out of the house, which 9 times out of 10 I was. But, I put him through that, like that's not okay. So now it's like, okay, if something little like you come into the store with me makes you feel better, that puts you at ease.
Yeah.
He could only sleep good if I was in rehab or, wherever.
Yeah, you just got to be patient with them to get over it, to get their own healing.
The only good thing from my use out here is it wasn't in his face anymore. Mm-hmm. And he's kind of like, you got to live your life. You got to do what you got to do. I'm not always going to be there to pick up the pieces, but and I tried to keep it away from them at this point because now I am so far away. But in the end, it's up to me to walk this path, and a lot of trial and error, mostly error.
Yeah.
I know what works for me and what doesn't. I know I need to be involved. I know that I need to be sponsoring guys. I need to be in meetings. I need to pick up the phone for people. I need to have people in my life that I have to call.
It just made me think, like, for a second, like, is it a blessing or a curse that we have these programs? Because you go to these programs and some people could just suck you back out into the drug through the program, but they're there to help you at the same time.
You mean
so
their,
it's like,
their message will divert you away from
No.
what they're
I'm just saying
teaching?
people go to these programs, they go into AA meetings and all that, and a lot of people have got some years underneath them, and then some people are fresh, and you could either go one way or the other in these meetings, and it's so tough.
Well, yeah,
helping people.
We get crap like that. I mean, we're on here talking about stories and stuff. Maybe they're out there watching, thinking like, oh, what he sounded like was a good time. But it's like, drugs are bad. Like, what else can we say?
What story has ever turned out
of
positive that you're going to talk about? Like, oh, drugs were good, and I did this and made it this far.
I'll tell you what,
Yeah.
I think we have an advantage. Like once we get our life together, I mean, regular people don't have a meeting to go to at night to talk about their problems.
Yeah.
Most people don't have 10 people at any given time they can call.
And they
say,
don't get vulnerable
hey,
whatsoever.
Right, I'm going through something today. Like our Bible study, like there's nothing like that.
No.
Where I could, say, you know what, I'm really struggling today.
Yeah.
I have this going on. I'm like, these guys are gonna have my back. Like
being in the Air Force, that's how that they taught you. You don't say shit. There's nothing wrong with you. You can say a feeling statement. Fuck you, dude.
Yeah.
Like, and you go to this Bible study, and it's like, man, everybody's flooding out with like what's wrong, and even this guy at the Bible study would just blurt it out like he's feeling lonely over the holidays, and just to hear somebody say that, like that relieved me inside because I felt the same way, and it comes to show that like, man, they're feeling the same way, and at least we can like talk about this and kind of move through this.
I think it's our biggest asset now, being an addict. Where like I thought it was my biggest curse, but I get to help people in a time of their need.
Yeah.
And it's not about me shining. It's just I get to do that, and it's such a blessing when like you're taking someone through the steps and you see a light bulb go off.
Well, it's like that when you first go in, you're on this side, right?
Right.
And then you go in and out, and then there's all these people on this side, right? And they're all happy, and it's working for them.
And you think
it's going to take that time for you to flip to his side,
over there.
and every freaking thing that they said made sense. Like on the other side, 24 hours at a time,
But
and then all of a sudden you're just like, motherfucker, now it's true. Like
you had to go through it though.
Yeah.
I had to take every drink and every drug I took because I wouldn't be where I am today. Like that, I have a fulfilling life. I'm not just like, going home and just watching TV. Like I'm doing something with my life. I'm not making a hell of a lot of money, but the phone calls I get, people are asking me to sponsor them. I'm like, 8 months ago, like I had literally nowhere to live, nowhere to go. I was on probation, and like I thought my life was over. It was just beginning.
Yeah.
And like someone asked me to sponsor them, and I was like, "Are you sure?" Like,
yeah, I get that too. I'm like, who am I to help you, like, or have any sort of responsibility over what I'm saying to you that'll actually affect you positively.
Right.
Then all of a sudden we get to that other side that we felt like it was impossible to
am
get
I going to screw this guy up even worse?
Yeah, and then you start to believe in yourself. But people will say like addicts that are in recovery are way better, like more responsible than like just regular people. I know working here, like no one here is in recovery, but I am, and I'm like their go-to guy. It's like because you just learn integrity. You learn like how to be responsible.
People are accepting of it also, and that's one question I wanted to ask you. Are you very open about like your recovery when you like with your job and everything like that? Are you?
Yes, this time around, yes, because I had worked there previously, and I left to go to the hospital. So I went, like I was at a point where I didn't care. I had nothing to lose. And I filled out the application, and I was always rehireable because I did very well and they wanted me there.
Yeah.
But like because of the felonies, I didn't know if I was going to get the job. There was a background check, and I just laid it out there. I said, I'm on felony probation. Before, like, I spoke to the manager because I had a prior relationship, from working there. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I'm on felony probation. Now, if the background check would have came back and they wouldn't have hired me, there's nothing they could do at that point. But I was just like, hey, this is what it is. I'm laying it all out there. Maybe sometimes I'm a little too much the other way, but I'm just like, you know what? It is what it is. I've lived in fear my whole life.
Yeah.
At the hospital, even when I was sober, I didn't, I was so scared that anyone was going to know. And, maybe it worked out the way it was supposed to, but maybe if I was open about it, I could have caught myself.
Exactly.
Sooner.
That's how I look at it. Is like, I'm very open about it, and I'll tell everybody. The more I tell it to people, the more accountable I am. And, if I hide it from people, then I'm susceptible for people like maybe throwing a drug my way or something like that, or drinking in front of me, or some kind of trigger it could trigger inside me, and I don't want that. But it's not just for that. It's just I want to be like, I'm proud of where I am today, and if they don't like it, then that's up to them.
Right. I look at it like this. Anyone that's important in my life knows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't post things on my Facebook recovery related because I think about...
This is going to be live.
Yeah, it's fine. But, like, I don't, post, like, oh, I got 60-day chip today,
Yeah, I don't do that either.
No, and I don't make recovery posts just because I think about, like, a job for the future. I don't know what's on there. But it's private anyway, like, for the most part. Like, people that I'm friends with can't see it. But I don't really
But do
care.
be proud of, like, you getting those chips and stuff like that and where you're at in recovery. It's almost like, to me, it's better than my birthday. Like, that's the way I'm looking at it. When I hit my 1 year and every year after that, that's like my reborn again date. And, we have to find the joy in that we're...
It's true.
And we're so vulnerable. Like, if you think about it in joy, like, we don't want to show that, but we need to be proud of that. Like, when we hit those marks.
Just for everyone that stuck with me through the journey, thankful to them. Don't quit before the miracle happens. Trust in something other than yourself, and the biggest thing is not living with the fear, and don't be ashamed of your past or your traumas. Face that stuff head on, because that's just as important as working the 12 steps.
Yeah.
Truly believe that, because that's the stuff that you don't want to talk about.
Yeah.
That's the stuff, because I could show up and do a 12-step program, but working through some of the traumas, that's the stuff I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
And I think that held me back for a long time. Now I'm just like, you know what? Whatever. Like, I'm hungry for this. I'm hungry for God. And I know that if I just keep following him, he's got something great for me, because I already, have such a wonderful life at 8 months that I can't believe that I've gotten this far and I have a fulfilling life. Like I said, I thought my life was over when I got arrested, and it was just the beginning of everything. And
all right, guys. Well, let's thank Joey again for coming on the show. Thanks, bud. I really appreciate you getting here.
Yeah, it was good to have you on, man.
Hey, what a great story and great point of view and insight on all this stuff that, we've struggled with, that we don't know how to figure out on our own. And it's all about just, giving it up to God and plugging in somewhere else. But, all right, guys, if you have any questions for John, Catherine, or I, please send us an email to recovhubpodcast@gmail.com. That's RECOV podcast@gmail.com. All right. And don't sell that ass short of a miracle. See you later.